Alright, welcome back to Dinopedia. Today we're going to be talking about the Amargasaurus, and we're going to be talking about the Ark Survival Amargasaurus, as well as what we do in reworking it into my brand new game, Dino World. Let's get into it. So of course the schedule, as always, is we talk about the Amargasaurus from Ark Survival, and we talk about tips and tricks for it, potential add-ons to the game, and reworking for a new game. Let's get into it. So the Amargasaurus from Ark Survival Ascended, also Ark Survival Evolved, is only found on the Lost Island DLC world. It's free. You don't have to you just have to download the DLC world and you can play on it. The description for the Amargasaurus is its kingdom is Animalia. Group is reptilian because it's a dinosaur, a lizard, big lizard. And description is spined sauropod. So it's a sauropod with spines on its head, neck, and back. As you can see here clearly with the white spikes from its head, neck, to back. The traits, colored spined on its head, neck, and back, very territorial, very aggressive. If you go near one in its territory, it will attack you. So obviously if you see one, don't go near it. It will very much attack you if you go near it. So best just, walk by, and unless you're going to go tame it, I would just not deal with it for now. And if we look at the stats for Ark Survival Ascended, we can see its health is 1250, stamina 425, oxygen 300, so it's double the amount of oxygen that a normal dinosaur has. Food, water is 6300, weight 475, melee damage, base melee damage is 40, speed is 2.6 meters per second, swimming speed is 3.2 meters per second, so it swims faster than it runs in general, and torpor is 2250. So if we look at the tips for the Amargasaurus, the color spikes determines its region. So if it's in the desert, the spikes will be yellow. If it's in the jungle, the spikes will be green. If it's near the water, it'll be blue. I know it can be red too, but I don't know what causes the red spikes. I don't think you can find them near the volcano area, but maybe. Number 2, quickly moves through the water and gives insulation to the rider. So if you need it, if you need like a tankier water mount, it is useful. It can swim in the water, so you can use it as like a tankier version of a megalodon for water travel, and it does give insulation to the rider. So if you ride it in cold environments, then it will be able to give you a passive resistance to coldness, so you won't freeze up if you're in the cold environments, which is somewhat useful. And then 3, it has a multi-attack. So it is a multi-attack dinosaur. It has 4 ways that it will attack you or any creature it goes up against. Its bite is 40 base damage. That's the base damage we talked about. Gore, it uses its neck to gorge an opponent, making them bleed. It gives them a bleeding effect that lasts for a limited time. Tail Whip swipes away opponents, dealing 50 damage, similar to a Diplodocus. And Stomp. That should say Stomp, not Stop. Stomp is an AoE damage, dealing 55 damage when it front stomps or back stomps with its hind legs, or for the back stomp, and its front legs for the front stomp. And looking at the tricks, so the spike modes can change the attack pattern of the exploding spikes, similar to a Stegosaurus, where you can change it to defensive plates, offensive plates, and protective plates. Same thing for the spikes. So the spikes can be changed to different modes. It has armor spikes, fire spikes, and cold spikes. Armor spikes affects the affected target, deals 25 increased damage from other creatures, so it basically gives weakness for 10 seconds to the attack when you use the exploding spike attack. Fire spikes ignites the affected enemy, and cold spikes deals 70 damage and adds the frozen debuff. So you freeze the enemy while also doing 70 damage. So that's kind of a trick that you can use during attack if you want to make a dinosaur be weak if you're attacking in a pack of dinos, so it takes 25 increased damage from everybody. Use the armor spikes, but if you want to inflict elemental damage, use fire spikes for fire and cold spikes for cold. So potential add-ons I could see for the Amargasaurus in the future is elemental spikes. When attacking, its spikes glow a certain color, determining the elemental quality of itself. So when you use the elemental spikes in battle, you can make them glow so they glow a different color when they're on the attack. So you can use them when you use the exploding spikes attack. It has an elemental quality to each spike. So these are the colors that I think that should be added. Red, fire, when you attack with an exploding spike, it ignites enemies. Gold, poison gas, releases toxic fumes from the area of the explosion. Biotic, heals nearby creatures when it explodes, so you shoot out a spike and it explodes nearby allied creatures and heals them. Blue, cold attacks freeze enemies. So if you launch a spike and it explodes, anybody caught up in the AoE explosion gets the freezing debuff. And purple is astral, resistance to projectiles and radial damage types. So you shoot it into a crowd of allied creatures with these purple spikes, and it gives any creature in that AoE cloud resistance to projectiles and radial damage types as long as it is an allied creature to you. So the Amarga in Dino World, obviously I like to shorten the name because in Ark it's Amargasaurus, but in Dino World I like to shorten it to Amarga. So there's 3 types of Amargas. One, the normal, wild, tamed Amarga. Then we have the mutated Amarga, the child of 2 tamed Amargas, using a gene computer. So when you breed an Amarga from 2 tamed Amargas, you also use a gene computer to mutate it. And then number 3, a dead Amarga, carcass of a dead Amarga that can be harvested for resources. Traits of the Amarga from Dino World, similar. It's Kingdom Animalia as always, Reptilian as always, class, sauropod, long necks and short necks. This would be considered a short neck sauropod. And of course, the family of sauropods, its spined sauropod, sharing this family with the Baroposaurus, Diplodocus, and of course itself. So Amargasaurus stats, we have it compared to the Ark stats. So health is the same, stamina is a little higher, plus 25 from 425 to 450. Weight a little bit higher, instead of 475, it's just 500. Speed, I've made it a little bit faster, 2.6 meters per second for Ark, 3 meters per second for Dino World. Swimming speed, made it a little bit faster as well, 3.5 as opposed to 3.2. And I made the torpor a little bit more. I really don't like I kind of like having it uniform for now. Obviously, if you have to change it to balance it, to make it a more uneven number like 22550, then sure, but I like the 2300 number better than just going halfway. And of course, it has a fortitude of 1. So if there's it can't be knocked back by any creature that doesn't have a fortitude of 1 or higher. So finally, additional traits, things that would make it more unique than Ark. I want the elemental spikes. Color determines what passive the Amarga has. So the Amargasaurus has a general passive ability that's determined by the color of the spikes. So instead of determining region, it's more about determining the passive. So red is heat resistance, resistance to fire attacks. Gold, poison resistance, immune to most diseases. Green, ×2 regen. So if it's regenerating health, it takes half as much time to regain back to full health. And gains 25% over health if healed by another creature, such as a Apatosaurus. Blue, cold resistance, resistance to being frozen. And purple, wild Amargas in the wild can genetically mutate over time. So wild Amargas with purple spikes can actually mutate and become mutated Amargas without needing the gene computer. They'll mutate over time, so they'll become more mutated over time because purple, makes it look kind of corrupted. And then the ability that you can use in combat. Radial emission, emit a cloud of gas determined by the element of the Amarga. Fiery for red, poisonous for gold. Biotic, which heals creatures around it, for green. Icy for blue, and then purple for infectious. So it infects creatures around it with disease. I think that would give it a nice combat advantage if it was in a fight for itself. And then finally, we have the Dino World spawns. Of course, we have the spawn rates of blue for guaranteed, green for very likely, yellow for few to likely, orange for rare, red for very rare, and of course purple for dead carcasses. So in Europa, the best thing, I have the Amargas being in the Highlands area. The Highlands area is between the eastern jungle, the Taiga, the Cherrywood forest, and the Volcano Bay area. It's like these grassy plains up here. We call them the Highlands. And that's where I want the Amarga to be. So the Amarga is rare to see in the Highlands area, and it is few to likely to be seen in this big area right here. So this big area surrounded by this yellow outline is few to likely. So it can be seen a little bit more likely in the Volcano Bay area right here, some in the Taiga, some in the Cherrywood forest, and some in the eastern jungle. It can appear in this big area right here more likely than it does in the general Highlands, but if you go to the Highlands, you will be able to see them very rarely. Not very rarely, just rarely. Anyway, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you like, dislike if you don't, subscribe if you like it. Comment down below which dinosaur you'd like me to do next. I'm going to try and do a dinosaur every single day, so we'll see what happens. But once again, everyone have a blessed day, and of course, as always, Toodaloo.